Rosalind woke up with an unusual feeling that someone was staring at her. Opening her eyes, she saw a rose petal on her pillow and then another one. They weren't just petals, it was a whole bouquet of beautiful red roses. "Good morning," her husband Matthew said tenderly. "Happy anniversary, my dear." Their wedding took place 12 years ago. She was pleased that day, and all the following years too. Many wouldn't believe it. They would say, "It's a fairy tale, something you can only see in the movies." But Rosalind knew that happiness happened not only in the movies. Rosalind couldn't imagine her life without her husband Matthew and their son Henry. Her friends were always surprised at how she managed to maintain such a tender relationship with her husband after all these years. "It's simple." Rosalind had an extraordinary, kind and loving heart that helped her to be happy. She met Matthew in college, and they had been together ever since. Matthew was 5 years older than Rosalind. The meek, skinny girl who had just graduated from school immediately won the heart of the young man, and in her last year of study, Matthew proposed to Rosalind. That's how their quiet family life began. They never fought, not even over small things. They cherished every day together, warmed by their love for each other. In an atmosphere of kindness and calmness, their son Henry was born. Recently, he had his first anniversary, 10 years old. Rosalind was so lost in her favourite memories that she didn't even thank her husband right away for the surprise. "Matthew, my dear, thank you. Happy anniversary to you too." "I am happy to have you," Rosalind rejoiced. "And I'm happy to have you. Maybe we'll celebrate our holiday a little tonight?" Matthew asked. "Yes, of course, darling. I'll prepare a delicious dinner. Don't be late," Rosalind replied. After breakfast, Matthew hurried to work. Rosalind spent the whole day looking forward to a romantic evening and, of course, didn't expect what a thundercloud was looming over her. The clock was approaching 6, and Matthew was still not there. He was already half an hour late. The celebratory dinner was getting cold on the table. Rosalind was worried about what had happened. Maybe he was delayed at work? She dialed her husband's phone number for the 10th time, but there was no answer. "Mum, is Dad coming soon? I'm hungry," Henry asked, spinning around the table. "Sit down and eat, son," Rosalind replied. Henry happily started eating dinner. Another 15 minutes passed. "Thank you, Mum. It was delicious. I need to go now. I haven't finished my homework," Henry said. Rosalind was lucky with Henry too. He was a responsible and intelligent boy who studied on his own and got good grades. Finally, the sound of keys and the opening door could be heard. "Matthew, where have you been? I was worried. Did you get delayed at work?" Rosalind asked. "Yes, at work," Matthew replied, avoiding eye contact. Rosalind knew Matthew down to every detail, every mole, every emotion, and immediately sensed that something was wrong. Her husband was clearly upset. Rosalind decided not to pry and served dinner on the table. Matthew picked up his fork, but froze and said with a lost voice, "A woman from the town near our city died. I was with her many years ago when I was working after technical school. She was almost 15 years older than me. We had only 2 meetings. In short, I have a daughter, Jackie. She's 13. She has no relatives except me," Matthew explained. While Matthew was talking, Rosalind was in a daze. It seemed to her that someone else was telling her this story, and that she just happened to overhear it. Rosalind didn't try to figure out when this happened to Matthew, before or after they met. It was too painful. And what was the point if everything had already happened? The decision came naturally. She wouldn't lose her family under any circumstances. Matthew sat there dejected with his head down. He was very ashamed in front of Rosalind. He was afraid to break the silence, fearing Rosalind would not accept it and would leave. Suddenly, Rosalind's gentle hand rested on his palm. She looked into her husband's eyes and timidly asked, "Matthew, what are we going to do? We need to decide about the child." Although she already knew the answer, Matthew was kind and decent, and Rosalind had a premonition he would admit his daughter without a second thought and take care of her. "Rosalind, I will do a DNA test, and if Jackie is my daughter, I cannot allow her to live in the orphanage with a living father," Matthew replied. The word father painfully cut Rosalind. She couldn't bear the thought that Matthew, her Matthew, had once caressed another woman besides her, even if it was a long time ago, perhaps before she met him. "I understand, Matthew. Go get her," Rosalind said barely audibly. She couldn't offer to go together, not yet. The next day Matthew left to get Jackie. Rosalind was restless, wondering how the girl who had just lost her mother would perceive her father. After the death of her closest person, she was probably overwhelmed with grief and fear for her own fate. Perhaps she would refuse to speak with her unexpectedly discovered father, and even more so with the woman who would now become her stepmother. That day, everything went wrong for Rosalind. Any work fell out of her hands, despite her love of cleanliness and comfort. A short call from her husband during the day was like an electric shock. "Rosalind, we're coming tomorrow night." She had hardly slept all night. It wasn't easy to connect with a 13-year-old, but Rosalind hoped that love and tenderness, which were a part of her life, would help her navigate this difficult situation. Telling Henry was difficult. He was already 10 and understood everything. Rosalind couldn't think of a better way than to tell him the truth. "Mom, don't worry. We'll live. We'll see. The main thing is that we're together." In the evening, Rosalind prepared dinner, and the delicious smells from the kitchen filled the air. Suddenly, the familiar sound of a key turning in the lock was heard. Trying to control her excitement, Rosalind went to the hallway. A confused Matthew was standing in the doorway, and next to him was a teenage girl with short hair, tattoos on her neck, and a nose piercing on the left side. Her clothes were no better, with a shapeless sweater, wide pants, and boots like soldiers. Rosalind didn't often encounter modern youth, as her Henry was not like that at all, so she looked at the girl in amazement. But that was just the beginning. "So, you're my own stepmother. Why are you staring? Don't you like me? Are you going to teach me how to live?" "Don't try. I'm already educated, and you'll never be a mother to me." Matthew interrupted his daughter's rude speech. "Jackie, stop it. You can't behave like that. Rosalind doesn't deserve such treatment. Apologize immediately." Instead, Jackie glared at Matthew and shouted angrily, "Daddy, why did you bring me here? You'd better pay me some money. You kind of owe me alimony." "Don't shout, you'll scare the neighbours. Come on, let's go eat," Matthew said. "I don't want to eat. Where can I throw my stuff? And you, Dad, think about money until the morning." Jackie continued to behave arrogantly. "Let's go. I'll show you your room," Matthew said, barely containing his righteous anger. Rosalind wrung her hands in despair and leaned against the wall. "Rosalind, what's wrong with you? Matthew exclaimed when he saw his wife, who was as white as a sheet. "Nothing. I just didn't expect this," she replied, flustered. "Rosalind, let's go to the kitchen. I'll tell you everything about Jackie. She had a tough life." Rosalind was serving dinner on plates and barely holding back tears. "Matthew, why did this happen to us?" she said. "Rosalind, if I had known about this earlier, everything could have been different. Jackie wouldn't have become so callous and rude. Her mother drank. She was practically an alcoholic. They didn't take away her parental rights, and the girl practically raised herself on the streets from the age of 8. Can you imagine what she turned into? Rosalind, I understand that she's not a gift. Of course I'll do a DNA analysis. But if it's confirmed that she's my daughter, I won't be able to just forget about her. Yes, it will be difficult with her, but my love will manage." Matthew smiled. "Yes, dear, of course." Rosalind hugged her husband around the neck. She was ready for anything to keep her family together, but she secretly hoped that Jackie was not Matthew's daughter. Unfortunately, her hope was shattered by the results of the clinic's DNA analysis, which confirmed Matthew 100% paternity. Practically all the burden of communication with Jackie fell on Rosalind. Her husband was at work all day, and Rosalind was running a private business. She was a budding designer and spent most of her time working from home. Communication, to put it mildly, was not easy. At first it consisted of a couple of rude words, rudely thrown at Rosalind. Jackie didn't touch her food. She snacked on pocket money that Matthew gave her somewhere and disappeared until late in the evening. When she returned without saying a word, she went to her room. Matthew tried to establish contact with Jackie. He decided that he would be able to do it more easily since he gave her money. But it was not to be. Jackie perceived the money as payment for the fact that her father was not with her for all 13 years of her life, and the fact that Matthew didn't know about her existence didn't bother her at all. No matter how hard he tried to show care and attention to his newly found daughter, she turned away and said nothing. The only thing he managed to do by hook or by crook was to save her mobile phone numbers in his and his wife's contacts. From the moment Jackie saw Rosalind, it seemed as if the girl hated her. However, Rosalind never gave up hope of getting closer to her stepdaughter. Rosalind firmly decided that she would achieve a good relationship with the girl. If not love, then at least respect, for her husband's sake. But so far, all her attempts, even to just talk to Jackie, have failed. They not only left Jackie indifferent, but also caused her to feel a wave of senseless irritation. Rosalind loved order, cleanliness, and everything had its own place. To annoy her, Jackie intentionally broke brooches, scattered trash around the rooms, or accidentally spilled coffee on the tablecloth. Rosalind endured these small annoyances stoically. Jackie's hatred only grew from this. She was rude to her stepmother. Matthew tried to stop it, but it was all in vain, and his initial positive attitude gradually faded. She didn't know what to do to improve his relationship with his daughter. He increasingly talked about getting rid of Jackie. "Maybe we should rent an apartment for her, and I'll help her with money." "Matthew, are you crazy? She's 13, and what will happen to her later? It's scary to think who she might become. We need to get her out of this state of unbridled impudence and cynicism. It's a pity that she spends most of her day somewhere, probably in bad company, but we still have to fight." And that's where Rosalind's steel character manifested itself. She set a goal for herself and wouldn't back down. "You're so brave and wise," Matthew admired his wife. Unfortunately, this bravery and wisdom didn't produce any results. Rosalind couldn't find a way to reach Jackie's heart. Quietly, calmly, and kindly, she tried to help the girl with everything, cooking, tidying up Jackie's things, giving her good gifts that she demonstratively refused. Rosalind never scolded Jackie. She always had a kind word, warming and encouraging. And if the girl really made her life unbearable, she sadly said, "Why do you do this, Jackie?" The situation was exacerbated by school. They had a hard time getting Jackie into a school near their home. But the girl became even more embittered and behaved despicably at school. Her father and stepmother were constantly summoned by the teacher and director. And then a terrible accident happened, compared to which the previous ones were nothing. On that day, as almost always, Jackie was scolded at school and got bad grades. She was in a terrible mood. She threw her bag in the hallway and, angry at the whole world, slumped into a chair. Rosalind ran out of the kitchen and asked, "Jackie, you're upset. What happened? Did you have a test? Let's go have lunch and you'll tell me." Suddenly the girl grabbed her bag, ran into the kitchen and angrily threw it on the dining table. Plates, cups, and a pot of soup flew off the table, clattering and breaking, and Jackie, in a hysterical fit, grabbed the tablecloth and pulled it off. Rosalind rushed towards Jackie, attempting to hug her. "Jackie, calm down." However, in a fit of rage, Jackie bit her stepmother's hand until it bled. At that moment, Matthew came home. Jackie realized she had crossed a boundary and would likely face a beating for it. Shocked, she ran from the kitchen to the hallway, throwing on clothes as she went, and fled into the street. When Matthew walked in, Rosalind was bandaging her hand. Seeing her husband, she quickly made up a story. "Matthew, I'm sorry, but I had an accident. I got caught on the tablecloth and everything on the table fell to the floor. I broke many dishes. I'll clean everything up now." Matthew saw his wife's injured hand and the blood-soaked bandage and immediately understood what had happened. "Rosalind, don't lie to me. Did she hit you?" "I know she did. That's it. I've decided I'm going to give her up. I'll go to the orphanage on Monday," Matthew said. "Matthew, please, don't rush. Give me a little more time," Rosalind pleaded. "No, Rosalind. Today she hit you, and tomorrow, in a fit of nerves, she'll kill you." Matthew tenderly hugged and held his wife. "Matthew, it's so sad that it hasn't worked out. She's your daughter after all. Can you give her one more chance?" "No, Rosalind, she's only our daughter on paper. In reality, she hates us and will never overcome that wall of malice and treachery." Rosalind didn't know where to turn from her disappointment. Matthew is a man of his word, and when he decides, he never changes it. She couldn't melt Jackie's heart with tenderness and care, and that was a humiliating realization. She automatically prepared another dinner, but didn't feel like eating. When Henry entered the kitchen, he noticed that his mum was upset about something. "Mum, what happened? Jackie again?" he asked anxiously. "No, everything's fine, my dear," Rosalind reassured her son. He and Jackie were only 3 years apart, but it was like a whole chasm. What to do? Matthew was brave now, but he would regret giving up his daughter to an orphanage later. Rosalind suddenly remembered that her mother always told her that when there are insurmountable difficulties, one should turn to God. Her mother was a sincere Christian, and she instilled a love of God in her daughter too. "Lord, help me. I want to improve my relationship with Jackie. Why does she hate me? Is it just because I am a stepmother? I don't know what to do." I rely on you," Rosalind whispered, praying selflessly and to tears. She was so absorbed in prayer that she didn't hear Jackie return. However, a strange whisper and barely audible sobs caught the girl's attention. She approached quietly and listened. The prayer, she knew it from somewhere. Suddenly she remembered. Her grandmother always used to recite this prayer when she was little. Jackie loved it very much. It's a pity that her grandmother died when she was only 8. After that, her life became practically homeless. Rosalind prayed, and Jackie couldn't take her eyes off her. Suddenly, she felt the urge to approach her stepmother and apologize for her behavior earlier that day. But something stopped her. That inexplicable thing that sat like a splinter in her heart and prevented her from opening up to bright feelings. She rushed to her room and tightly closed the door. All weekend, Rosalind was depressed because of Jackie. "Don't be upset, Rosalind. We're doing everything right. Don't hope for anything more. I shouldn't have brought her. She didn't even apologize for her terrible behavior when she hurt your hand." Matthew comforted his wife. "Don't make excuses for her terrible behavior. She'll come back tonight, and tomorrow morning I'll take her away. And that's it." But Jackie didn't come back in the evening. For the first time, she didn't come back that evening, and not at night either. Only towards morning, Rosalind's mobile phone rang. "Rosalind, I'm freezing. I can't move. Come and get me," Jackie whispered faintly. "Where are you?" Rosalind asked anxiously. I don't know. Some abandoned, non-residential buildings on a construction site, not far from the city." The connection was lost. Rosalind unsuccessfully tried to call Jackie's number. The subscriber is unavailable. "Matthew, let's go faster. Something's happened to Jackie. She says she's freezing, and it's the end of October now. It's cold outside." Rosalind was scared. Without hesitation, Matthew ran to the car, and 10 minutes later they were driving out of town. An abandoned building on a construction site. There were many such buildings outside the city, but they were lucky. Jackie was found in the first house they came across. Upon entering, they found her unconscious with closed eyes, a pale face and blue lips. Later, at the hospital, the doctor said, "It was hypothermia. You found her just in time. She was on the verge of freezing to death. But she's young and strong and she'll recover. You can visit her tomorrow," the doctor said. The next morning, Matthew and Rosalind rushed to the hospital. When they entered the ward, Rosalind ran to Jackie and hugged her for the first time. "Jackie, what happened?" Rosalind asked. "Rosalind, forgive me for everything. You're the best. I've been on the street since childhood and I've become hardened. I've been offended by the whole world. I forgot that there's goodness, love, and care in life. I thought they no longer existed, like mammoths. And you're just pretending to be good in your husband's eyes. But yesterday, I heard you praying sincerely for me. It was so moving, like when my grandmother used to read prayers to me as a child. I wanted to come to you, but I didn't dare. Then I accidentally overheard what Dad wants to send me to an orphanage. I'd rather die than go there. That's why I decided to freeze, just fall asleep and never wake up. But I couldn't do it." Jackie was unable to speak any more. She was choked with tears. Everyone was crying. Jackie, Rosalind, and Matthew. The stepmother and her stepdaughter's standoff was over. With her kindness, Rosalind defeated the anger that had taken hold of Jackie's mind and turned her soul around. And the girl loved her because it was impossible not to. The main thing is that now they are together. They are one family.